Good morning, good morning. This is a great event to be here, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Senator Kavanaugh, Councilmember Levin, the Rabbi Weiser from the Community Board. Thank you for being here. Councilmember Maloney's, I'm sorry, Mary? Thank Mary Underdonk. So I'm saying it wrong. I apologize. O'Domarok, and thank you for being here, and thank you to Senator Congresswoman Maloney, who's really been a fighter for this project and for the L train project and for transportation infrastructure for so long. And also I have to acknowledge our friend, the group station manager, Larry Baganda, who looks after this station every day, all day. And I'm joined by folks who participated in the construction project. We're here to mark the completion of the major construction on the Brooklyn side of Canarsie, the Canarsie Tunnel project. The Canarsie project has been a model of innovation in all ways that everybody knows about, that we were able to avoid getting our phones during press conferences. No, what was innovative about that project, I think everybody knows, is that we were able to do all the work that everybody thought was going to require a shutdown, and instead we were able to keep the service going throughout the construction, so that 300,000 people plus every day were able to have their normal commutes. Over 90% of the riders had no disruption whatsoever. And we think this project, which was delivered way early and over $100 million under budget, is proof that the MTA can deliver projects faster, better, and cheaper, even amidst the tremendous constraints of the COVID pandemic. Today, L train riders are getting 2 new elevators to this station, the Bedford Avenue station. New and rehabilitated stairs for better circulation. All the finishes, the wall tile, Bedford and Driggs have been redone, new sidewalks, new streetscape, and a host of communications upgrades. On-the-go screens, CCTV, customer information screens, new fire alarm, new help point devices, the whole shebang, as we say at the MTA. Making the Bedford Avenue station ADA accessible was a priority for us. In part, we have made accessibility a priority. The world has made accessibility a priority, and we're living up to it at the MTA. Over the past few months, we've opened 6 new accessible stations: the Astoria Boulevard in Queens, Bedford Park in the Bronx just last week, First Avenue and Chambers Street in Manhattan, 86th Street here in Brooklyn, and here finally at Bedford Avenue in Williamsburg. We've included an unprecedented amount of ADA stations in the 20 to 24 capital program, 70 stations. That's close to half of the stations that have been made accessible over the past 30 years, and we're proposing to do that in just one 5-year capital program. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're delivering these projects faster, better, and cheaper, so the public can get more improvements and we can get more work done. But the critically important work of making more stations ADA compliant can't be achieved if the plan's funding is cut as a result of the financial impacts of the COVID crisis. In January, our plan was to award contracts for 39 ADA stations this year as part of that 70-station 5-year plan. Now, after COVID, with incredible stretching and a lot of financial gymnastics, we're anticipating that we're going to be able to award only 15. So that gives you a sense of the impact of COVID on us economically. And many stations, more stations, won't be able to go forward if the federal government doesn't finally step up and treat this, the financial crisis at the MTA like it would treat a natural disaster in Florida or other parts of the country. This is our disaster, and we need and deserve the federal government's help. I know that our partners in government, represented today by Senator Kavanaugh and Councilmember Levin, are fighting for this. But in the meantime, while folks in the Congress and the administration debate whether there should be any additional COVID relief, we at the MTA have been working with our contractors, with organized labor, our union partners, and with our own dedicated staff to complete projects at an unprecedented pace. Governor Cuomo challenged us to identify projects that we could accelerate, taking advantage of low ridership, that there was more opportunity to do work in the system, and we plowed ahead with E-train track reconstruction in Jamaica, with the whole Grand Central station, subway station mezzanine, which you should go and take a look at. It is new, really feels like it's totally new. The Union Square switch replacements, which were long overdue, Eastern Parkway repairs, a lot of work all over Brooklyn, and here, of course, on the Canarsie line. All that work was made possible because of the commitment that the legislature and the governor made to funding the MTA and rebuilding our subway system. But this kind of progress is not going to be able to continue, as I said, if the federal government doesn't step up and provide at least the $12 billion in shortfalls that the MTA is experiencing in 2020 and 2021 as a result of COVID. It's urgent, and we're really looking at a financial crisis if the federal government doesn't make good on the commitments to support urban America during the COVID crisis. So with that note of urgency, I'm going to turn it over to our colleagues in elected government, Senator Brian Kavanaugh.
Thank you so much. I'll take this off. Thank you very much. It is really a great pleasure to be here with some positive news and an in-person event to celebrate. Those have been rare in recent months, but I think it is appropriate that we are here today. Thank you, Jano, and everybody at the MTA for bringing us together today, and also for tremendous work over a long period of time now to bring this project to completion. The L train project got a great deal of attention initially, of course, because the initial thought was the only way to do this work was a complete shutdown of the tunnel under the river, which would have seriously diminished the ability of the L train to do what it does, which is move a very large number of people every day in our city and move them to and from jobs and from school and from all of the things that in normal times are part of the day-to-day fabric of our life. I think it really gave people an understanding. Even many of us who took the L train all the time, I think, did not quite understand the centrality of this line. This line by itself ranks as one of the biggest subway transit systems in the country. Just this one train line is bigger than many cities' entire subway systems in terms of ridership. Obviously, there was this tremendous moment where the MTA, and with thanks to the governor as well, who put some attention to this, came up with a better way of doing this, so we didn't need the full shutdown and allowed people to continue to use this line. But the other thing that became clear is that stations like this had grown in significance for communities like this. This is a community where there's been a lot more activity, long hours of the day and night, many people moving into the neighborhood, and more need for effective transit like this. This is a station that had become more and more crowded. The entrances and exits were narrow, it was darker, and it was a difficult station to use. It is wonderful to see this project complete. So many entrances and exits, nice lighting, all the improvements, and particularly ADA, which it's important to note is not just about people with mobility impairment, disabilities, although that's important. It also allows people with strollers, people with shopping carts. It makes the whole system. There we go. Case in point. But it makes the whole system more accessible for busy people in our city who have to get around with children, with other things that they need to carry, and having people carry up, stuff up and down stairs has made the system much more challenging for people. So I thank the MTA. I also want to give a great shout out to the contractors and the construction workers who did this work. Throughout COVID, we had essential construction going on. Construction workers really have been an essential part of keeping our city running and looking toward the future with projects like this. I also want to thank the community. There was a lot of very difficult conversations initially about what the impact of this project was going to be, about how communities like this could benefit if we put our minds together and made some strong suggestions to the MTA. Community came together, and I think that we have a much better result. With that, I'm going to turn the proceedings over to a great colleague in the City Council who really has been part of organizing this community for a lot longer than I have, frankly. He's represented this neighborhood for many years and is a great leader and a great colleague, Steve Levin, council member.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you, Jano, for this really remarkable day. This community really did a lot of work, as Brian said, coming together in the early stages of this, trying to figure out with our neighbors across the river, what to do about this massive shutdown and the impacts that it would have on businesses around here. Obviously, this was all before COVID, and so in that world, this was going to be the biggest impact we could possibly imagine on small businesses, on our communities trying to get to and from work, and it was very remarkable that the governor and the leadership at the MTA and Jano came forward and was able to be nimble enough as a governmental agency to see that there was another way to do this that would not have those massive impacts, and they were able to change course, and as a result, here we are. These months later, we have not had the massive disruption from this project that we would have had in this community. This community has had to deal with a lot. Small businesses have had to deal with a lot over the last 7 months. It would have been that much worse if they had just been dealing also with an L train shutdown. And so this was kind of a lifeline to them to be able to get people to and from Williamsburg into the city during this time, and so that was another additional benefit to it. Also, as Jano said, this shows the value of smart infrastructure planning, because it came in early and it came in under budget, and you don't hear that too often. And I think that we've become acclimated over the years for large projects, whether they're at the MTA or the wastewater treatment plants, or our parks. We've become accustomed to just having them come in over budget and late. And I think that, especially right now, as we're going to be dealing with coming out of the COVID crisis economically for years, we need to be adaptable and see how we can be more innovative and not just stuck in our old ways, because otherwise we're not going to be able to get very much done. So this is a project that really shows that you can do that in a meaningful way. And also, as Jano said, we're just desperate for the federal funding to be able to keep this city going. I was on a conference call with all of our federal legislators back in April. And it was with the whole council and all of our federal reps, and they said, we're hopeful that we can have, another stimulus package by the end of May. Now, we had to negotiate our budget in the month of June, and we had a $9 billion shortfall, and so, we are now 6 months behind on this. This should have happened in May. We should have been able to bail the MTA out. We should have been able to keep our small businesses going through, additional payroll help or whatever it would have entailed. What we've seen now, just from this stalemate in Congress on the federal level, is that as a city, we've been going it alone. We made the cuts to our budget. MTA has deferred projects. it's been really difficult, but I've got to hope that the federal government will get to it and provide this city with some relief, because we've been able to get by, but it's been really hard. I cancel rent. But I also want to just acknowledge the community and the contractors, all the people that worked on this project. And I'm especially gratified to see the elevators, because accessibility. Our city is not accessible. This is one station out of hundreds of stations that really ought to be upgraded with accessibility. But we can see how long it takes and how much work goes into just making one station accessible. So this is a generational challenge to make this city more accessible, because it's the right thing to do. It's compliant with federal law, and our neighbors, our friends and neighbors that need that accessibility, they deserve it. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Jenna, but I want to thank you and thank everybody for being here today on this momentous day.
Thank you, Council Member. Thank you, Senator. I just want to emphasize one thing, which is this project was a success because we had a great construction and project management team. The construction team from Judlow did an exceptional job. Our CM consulting project management team from Jacobs and our own MTA staff managed the job. Remember how this job was done, which is that every night we would turn off service and get work done, and then turn service on for the rush hour. And every weekend we would take a 54-hour outage and get a ton of work done, and then gather up all that equipment and get rid of all the demolition that had been done and all of the materials in the system, and put the railroad back on track, so to speak, to run service for the Monday morning rush. And those turnovers and the management of the air quality and the management of the impacts on the community were perfect, virtually perfect. And that was an accomplishment of the men and women of the construction and project management team. And I just want to acknowledge them. Many of them are standing behind me, so thank you. So with that, I'll take questions. Also, the elected officials, and happy, Dan?
Hey, you said 2 elevators at this station?
Yes.
Do you have the per elevator cost for this, for those elevators?
I'll have to get back to you, but I'll do that today.
Okay. And on the issue of funding, a lot of questions I get when the MTA unveils a project is, wait, I thought they were broke. How are they paying for it? How are you managing the cash flow? And can you please provide a little detail on what you said about financial gymnastics, I believe or whatever your phrase was, but put a little more detail on that,
think
please.
what we said is that all the projects that were underway when COVID hit, we moved forward. The money had already been assigned. The money was in hand, in effect, and it would be incredibly expensive and irresponsible to stop them, because that would cost way more to stop those projects. So we completed the work that was underway. What we've been able to do is to advance. Dan, we've been advancing all federally funded projects, all in-house work that is being done by our own forces, and, as I said, projects that were already funded, money we had in hand. What we did was we looked for opportunities to take those projects that were already underway and to advance them, to move them more quickly. That's where the acceleration came in. And then as well, there were a few projects which, as I said, were federally funded or in-house, and we accelerated those. So we were able to get the work done more quickly with the projects we already had money for. That was the principal strategy for the acceleration.
And just related to that,
but just to emphasize it, we've stopped everything else. All of the stations, the ADA station upgrades, the resignaling projects, and a lot of the other projects, acquisition of new cars that are in the 20 to 24 capital program, the 2020 to 2024 capital program, which was adopted by the legislature and the governor at the beginning of this year. a historic program with $54 billion in it. Those projects have mostly not been able to go forward during the COVID era because we don't know if we have the money.
And just related to the federal bailout you mentioned, can you provide us a roadmap between now and when there's going to be a new Congress seated in January? What's the MTA's financial picture? How are you managing it so that, at least for your portfolio, what's the picture between now and January?
I think it's just as I described to you. We're not advancing any projects that require new money because we don't know if we're going to have it. So we're only advancing the projects that we have underway, where we have the money, where we have use it or lose it money from the federal government, or where we build the work with our own in-house forces. Otherwise, everything is stopped until we see if there's going to be money coming out of the Congress.
Any current projects stopped because of the lack of federal aid?
Not so far, but I'll confirm that. Next questions.
Anybody else? All right, thanks everybody.
I want to thank you.
Thank you for being here.